Right. Shotgun? Check. Smoke grenades? Check. Rabid My Little Pony repellent? Double check. It's the 5 games for Doomsday Expeditions.
Today's the day I'm going to turn things around with Uli, Ben.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I slept on it. I was a little bit wound up yesterday after our chat.
Did it wake up like aching in the morning?
It's very funny. This is serious, though, okay? We're talking about the future of the premier board game company.
Sleeping on your front? Or did it like flop over to the side and then you
Can we please just drop the gags? Can we drop the gags?
Sorry, I appreciate this is a serious business podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about like the future sponsor of Berlin Brit Spielcon.
Well, exactly, Hall 2.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Spielworks.
Yeah, I think, you know, I was thinking about it and I got to take responsibility for my end of the situation.
Okay.
And I'm just going to have a word with Uli today.
Okay.
And I think we're going to be able to work out a mutually beneficial arrangement.
So what do you think?
I mean, I don't know. I think he should just hand over the company to me, basically. He should be the figurehead, like the face of Spielberg.
Well, he's a very charismatic man, isn't he?
Yeah. Extremely charismatic.
What are you going to do?
Warm, funny, likable. Like, everybody knows him.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, like, you know, control everything from behind the scenes.
Because, I mean, the thing is, I mean, you must be relieved it's Sunday, the last day of Essen.
Are you kidding me? This has been a slog, you know?
Because the amount of work you've done. I mean, you're the hardest. Like, Meeple Pete put up a picture of me interviewing Dominique yesterday, saying with the byline like, ask 5 games for Doomsday, always at it, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near the hardest working person in board gaming, am I?
I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to say anything.
I mean, what have you...
And it's, you know what? It's not about me getting, like, recognition for it. I know that I've been... Like, oh, Uli doesn't care about my hard work. He doesn't entertain any of my ideas. Yeah. He pretends I don't work for the company.
Right.
and you know what? It's like not about me.
No, it's not about you.
It's not even about Uli. It's about Spielworks. You know,
exactly.
The identity.
We sounded like the Beastie Boys then. When we did it at the same time.
I think we have a lot in common with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're more like Dustin Diamond, though.
Well, you're like a middle-class kid. Well, I was going to say you're a middle-class kid from Manhattan, but you're not, are you?
Yeah, Brooklyn.
You're like an interloper from bloody...
I'm ethnically Brooklyn.
Right, okay. So, I mean, the thing is, what are your duties today? Because it's like quarter to...
I know.
To 11.
And it seems like
the fair's already started.
Yeah, it seems like Sunday is a slow day, right?
Right.
So I thought, like, I'll take the morning.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, plan.
Didn't you take yesterday off as well?
I did. I needed a break. I absolutely needed a break.
What did you do on Friday?
I was at the booth on Friday. Okay.
How long were you at the booth for?
Well, there's like a mead stand right there.
That's true. That is true.
So quite a few minutes.
Yeah.
Anyway, you have to plan. Like, it's the slow day, but it's also like you got to tear everything down, pack everything away, put it all back in the truck. I mean, someone is going to be doing that, and someone has to supervise it.
Work smart, and are you going to be supervising it?
Someone has to organize the supervision.
Okay. Who is that?
I have to figure that out.
Right. Okay.
That's my job. Okay. Right. Someone has to do it.
And if anyone knows anything about you, it's that you get your job done.
Yeah, are you suggesting I don't? Are you intimating that my contribution to Spielworks is not outsized relative to everyone else's in that company?
I mean, how could I?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the creative director of Spielworks we're talking about, not some Mickey Mouse.
So I think what we should do when we get there is we go find Uli.
Yeah.
And we can talk to him.
Hammer it out with him. You sort out your role in this company now.
Yeah. I think we need to finally settle accounts, and then we're all going to be happier for it.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are you looking forward to today at last day? God, it goes by so quickly.
It goes by so quickly, doesn't it? I'm looking forward to pottering about a bit.
You do that every day.
Having a potter.
Yeah, but that's what you did Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
I've put out 4 fucking podcasts, Lav. Hardest working man in board gaming, present company accepted.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
Yep. I need to visit the, is it Rathskeller or Ratskeller, or how do they pronounce it?
I mean, Rathskeller, I assume?
So I can put down a deposit on one of their fancy tables without actually having to decide which one or anything else.
Oh, wow.
And this has been like winding me up most of all in this decision-making process. For the listener, I've finally decided to invest in a proper gaming table, but I don't want to pick one. Ratskeller seems to be the most highly regarded brand.
That's right.
But they're expensive and there are a lot of options.
I'm
And
just agreeing with you with sentences because I'm basically falling asleep.
I don't have my wife here to help me make the decision. And basically, the easiest path for me is give them 250 euros and then work it out in 3 weeks.
The thing is, though, Steve, think about it, right?
Yeah.
You're a top-notch creative director
Yeah.
in one of the most renowned board game companies in the industry.
I see where you're going
Your
with this.
decision-making is faultless. I mean, we've seen... so let's look at what Uli had at Essen this year, right?
Yep.
London Victorian Railway, Vampire.
London...
Vampire Railway.
Necropolis.
Yeah.
Trains.
Yeah. He had, Carolingi.
Yeah, Oranienburger Canal.
Oranienburger
but not
Canal.
for sale.
Elborough.
Pilgrim, kind of.
Pilgrim. Like, what contribution...
Squaring Circleville.
Square and Circleville. What contribution did you have to those games as creative director?
Yeah, no, I agree that my contribution is like inestimable, and what I think you're getting at.
Try and estimate it.
Well, what I think you're getting at.
Just try. I know it's inestimable, but try and estimate it.
Yeah. Well, I think it is enough
Yeah.
that I don't even know why I'm thinking about which gaming table to get and how much I should spend on it, because like someone's got to play test all these games,
Exactly.
and someone's got to put together the concepts for the new line in 2023
So what you're
that
trying
Uli
to-
doesn't know about
What
yet.
you're trying to say is it's a legitimate business expense and Uli should buy it for you. Is that what you're trying to
Do you
say?
disagree?
I don't disagree at all. I think the amount of work. How has this podcast become basically you talking about your job? How has that happened? How have you taken over my podcast? Oh, by the way, I noticed yesterday
Yeah.
a couple of interviews
Yep.
with Alex and Martin.
Oh, here we go.
You were like fucking chipping in and shit.
Here we go.
You might be creative director of Spielworks, love, but you're not a fucking interviewer on the 5 Games for Doomsday fucking podcast.
I figured it was like a more casual
Yeah, you
setting than
figured.
your normal.
You figured to assume, you know what I mean?
Now, what if? Hear me out.
Right.
What if we arranged a sponsorship of 5 Games for Doomsday?
By Spielworks.
Yeah. Like kind of like 4 or 5 figures a month.
Well, we could just do.
Then is it okay if I chip into the interviews?
We could just do CD's Corner, couldn't we?
CDs?
Creative directors.
Yeah, why not?
Creative Directors Corner, like every
Yeah.
week you have a creative directors, and you could explain, your contributions to the games and that, like what
To
you've
the
done.
to the industry.
So how was the development process of London Acropolis Railway?
How was it?
Yeah, how was it?
It was great.
I mean, you must have been intimately involved.
It was great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What about Square and Circleville?
Also very good. Yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, so the designer came in, he pitched the idea.
Yeah?
I offered
Did he?
a few tweaks.
How did you?
Yeah, like this game feels like 90% finished.
Yeah.
And like I put the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Actually, Uli rejected some of my suggestions.
Okay.
But we compromised in the end.
Right, okay.
We compromised in the end, and you've played the game.
So who's the designer of Square and Circleville?
His,
Because obviously you've been so intimately involved with it, you must.
yeah, his name is Mike.
What are you looking at your phone for?
His name is.
What are you looking at your phone for? You're not looking up the name of the designer. Surely you must have his name to mind.
No, his name is. It's Mike, isn't
He's
it?
taking it.
I mean, I call him Mike.
Are you calling him Mike?
I call him Mike because we're friends, but actually
Okay.
his name is Matt.
Oh, okay, right.
Matt Wolf, or like
Yeah.
Mike to his friends.
Yeah, that's right.
Matt Wolf. I'm not necessarily involved.
Do you call him Wolfie?
I don't necessarily go down.
Hey, Wolfie!
I don't burrow down into the trenches.
Okay.
And like deal with the actual.
You're more like
designers
big
directly.
picture.
Yeah, very big picture, like the biggest picture.
All right, so train's going to come in a minute. So we're going to get on the train, go to the Messer, and then we're going to hammer it out with Uli.
Let's do it.
So it's Essen, it's day 4, I think.
Yeah, the last one.
They're the last one. So I'm here with Hjalmar Chach, is that correct?
Yeah, Hjalmar Haag. Yeah.
Designer of Evergreen, Photosynthesis,
King's
Dilemma, The Great Split, thousands of games. My first question is, you're Italian, right?
Yes.
How do you have this Nordic name?
Oh, so that's a pretty tough story. No, not really tough, but so it's a legacy thing, let's say. I'm half German, actually.
Oh, okay.
But it's not a German name; it's a Nordic name.
Yeah.
Like from the mythology.
Right.
And it was actually my grandgrandfather's name,
Oh, wow.
which I inherited, luckily, or not so luckily. So he was actually a historical figure.
Okay.
He was the Minister of Economy during the Third Reich
Fucking hell, really?
Yes.
Wow.
And you can actually, for gamers, so yeah, that he did the gold mark, he recovered the Germany after First World War.
Okay.
He made the deals with Americans and recovered the economy. And actually, for gamers, the cool thing is you can play him as a character in Black Orchestra, because it seemed that he was behind one of the attempted plots to kill Hitler. So and during Nuremberg, the Nuremberg trial, he was one of the only two that were not shot. You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So it's a crazy story, and that's why I have this name.
And now you live in Italy?
Yes.
Where they're trying to do it all over again?
Oh, yes.
You must be so
Maybe I
happy.
can become minister of economy. Minister of gaming.
So-
No, I'm really sad about it,
Oh,
obviously.
it's incredible, isn't it?
The whole world is falling apart.
Doesn't it feel like it?
Yeah, with these extremists. Yeah.
So, on a nicer subject,
Yeah.
how has Spiel been for you?
It was great. I think it's the first time it feels somewhat like before, and except for the masks, obviously. So yeah, I'm really happy. The games were really well received. Obviously, I'm always stressed before coming here because it's like a big test.
Sure.
And we have so many tables, and I always envision it like
Crickets.
no one is sitting down. All those tables, you know. But instead, we always were full. People loved. For who doesn't know, we came out with Evergreen and The Great Split.
Yeah.
So those were the two novelties, and they really, really enjoyed them. And so I'm super, super happy talking to a lot of people, asking feedback. What do you think about the game? How do you felt? Like, you know,
Do you
because
tell them beforehand that you're the designer?
no, absolutely not. Not even afterwards.
Really?
Yes. No, but I want a clean feedback, and
Sure.
if I can get it, it's great.
And so, I was speaking to Alessandro about this the other day too. Horrible were nominated for the Kennerspiel des Jahres.
Yes.
Right? For King's Dilemma.
Yes.
When you're designing games now, are you thinking about that award, or are you just designing the best game you can?
So I think we have a target in mind, and it's more of a target like a public that we want to do the games for.
Right.
And the prize is aligned somewhat to those targets, right?
Sure.
So you try to do the best game that you can, not because of the prize. Obviously, when we do a game, we think, oh, this could make something and for that prize, but it's not something we consider beforehand, right? I think it's just you try to make the best game for the market, because that's the biggest thing. And,
Right, exactly.
And prizes actually normally do how do you
Reflect.
say? Yeah, reflect somewhat that.
Yeah.
You know, also, just think about it. Spiel will put the sticker on your box, and they will get a percentage of your
Sure.
of your sales. So they want games that sell well. So if you do games that sell well, probably you will be in the nomination.
Yeah.
There are other factors, obviously, and like, but there are also prizes for innovation. Those normally are less reflective of, less representative of the reality of the market. But yeah, as always.
And so the two released this year. I know Evergreen has a German version. Does the Great Split?
Yeah,
have a German?
we will have a localization for every country.
Yeah.
Pretty much as always. Now at the fair we are selling also the German version. It depends. Here, the Great Split has free language, a multi-language with free language. So it depends on what we do before the fair, right?
And so where would you pitch the games? I mean, you never know if you're going to get nominated, but Would you say Evergreen is a Kenner Spiel and the Great Split is a Spiel, or where would you pitch the games in those awards?
I really don't know, because our target is Family Plus.
Right.
So gateway games that try to hit both the hobby gamer and the people that didn't play other games before. So trying to, it's I think the strongest tool to bring people in the hobby, right? You need those games that are gateways to the hobby. So we try to design those because they try to hit more than one target at the same time, and that's why I don't know where they would put them. I think maybe a little bit more Kenner than maybe the Great Split is less Kenner and Evergreen is a little bit more Kenner, but I sincerely don't know, because Evergreen is also pretty smooth and easy going,
sure.
right? Doesn't have it's not edgy.
Yeah.
It's very smooth, so it feels like easy to me.
And so, what's happening with you as a designer then in the next year and a half?
Oh, yeah. So life's getting crazier and crazier. Surely a lot of attention will go on to Queen's Dilemma.
Yeah.
Because Queen's Dilemma now is a priority. We really want to push it out.
Do you have a plan of a release date?
Yeah, no, it's the 25th of October. We get the Kickstarter.
Oh.
And then we will also see, because the Kickstarter influences what you can and cannot do for the game. So if we see that there is a lot of support, things might change. So we will transform the game based on what happens, and also actually we have a plan we already did it, but you didn't see it because we don't launched now already, right? But we will have an activity during the Kickstarter which will shape some things of the game while the Kickstarter is going, through the votes of the people, as if it was a meta King's Dilemma.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's what we want to do.
Excellent. Well, Hjalmar Hack, I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you.
And if I don't see you before, I'll see you next year.
Thank you. Big fan.
Thank you very much. It's day 4. It's Essen. And I'm here with the only discerning arbiter of quality taste in the Dice Tower. That's Chris Yu. Chris, how are you feeling?
I feel like I'm too tired to understand all of those words, but
I'm also a lot cleverer than you, so I mean that's a thing.
You are a smart dresser and a smart person.
Do you have a degree?
It's centigrade or Fahrenheit.
Right, exactly.
There you go.
So, this has not only been your first Essen, this has been your first trip out of the continental United States of America, kind of.
That is correct, yes.
How have you found it?
I find it quite invigorating. There's so many good things to eat.
Right.
And that's how I travel. It primarily is via my stomach. And
Is there good stuff to eat? Because I always find myself, I'm a little bit disappointed by German food, but everyone else seems to love it. I mean, what have you had that has tickled the palate?
Well, I mean, it's funny because doner kebab is we call it German food, but it's really more of a Turkish-influenced dish.
Right, yeah.
But that is probably the best thing that I've eaten. But everything, the pastries, the sandwiches, what is there not to enjoy? If you don't enjoy good bratwurst, then I mean, you're no podcast host in my mind.
I mean, it's all right. Asian food's where it's at, though. Vietnamese or Thai food is or Korean is objectively the best, right?
I don't disagree with you. Korean, I mean, it helps that I come from Korean heritage,
right,
Korean
exactly.
roots and stuff. So yes, I grew up with a warm pot of rice and sweet marinated beef constantly.
Well, if you ever join me in Berlin, there is a Korean fried chicken place that is the best food I've ever eaten in my life.
Okay. I accept your challenge.
Exactly. So I mean, what have you found about Essen itself? I mean, I guess you've been working pretty hard, but what have you found about Essen itself that's been surprising, interesting, different to your experience?
I think that I've worked with the Dice Tower now for almost 2 years and been to various different conventions in the United States. People are always excited and happy to see us, but I think that there is I would say perhaps a more effusive response to seeing some of us, and and when I think about it, it makes sense. We travel to a different continent. People at Gen Con might also get a chance to come to a Dice Tower event or see us at a different convention. And this is kind of our one trip to Europe that we manage a year. And so people are very, very polite and kind and excited to speak with even the likes of me, a relatively fresher face at the Dice Tower.
Incredible. I mean, I'm surprised anyone would. But, when you peel back the layers of sort of... I'm trying to do banter credits Sunday. No, but so what's fascinating is for all the adoration the Dice Tower gets, I also feel there's this current of, if you become, because nerds can be, snarky, this idea that, I grow out of the Dice Tower. I mean, are you familiar with that kind of attitude towards the Dice Tower? I mean, are you on forums? Do you read things like that?
Oh, we see so much. There's the psychological phenomenon. For every one negative thing you see, you need to internalize at least 5 positives.
Right.
And it gets discouraging sometimes, but I also get the idea that people do things that are more refined. I find yourself, not to blow smoke up anyone's rear end.
Please blow it anywhere.
But yes, well, prepare the hose. I think that the interviewing, your show is some of the best interview type format show that I've listened to, and I love it for that reason. And we certainly are not going to copy you because that's not our specialty. But when I see people from around the world and Spiel and Essen is such an international affair, more so than any of the other conventions I've been to, it helps resonate, or it helps confirm to me the idea that something that the Dice Tower does resonates with people all around the world. People love coming to our shows and seeing us in our very jet-lagged and tired state crack little silly jokes that any would-be comedian could come up with, of course. But there's something about the fun that we have that resonates. We have fun doing what we do, and so if people grow out of that or mature out of it and go to more refined things, then that's great. There's room in the hobby. There's room in the world for that. Not everything has to be an opera. There's room for vaudeville. There's room for the Three Stooges. And if we're the Three Stooges of the board gaming world, well, I grew up on the Three Stooges, and I have so much.
Your mask is off, but I see your point.
Yeah, it's Sunday.
Right. And so, you're a Euro gamer.
Through and through. No, I shouldn't say through and through, but
that's your happy place.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
There you go.
So is coming to a place like Essen, where this is the wellspring of the Eurogame, and I think the games that are really popular here are those crunchy, heavy Uwe Rosenberg, Stefan Feld type of games. Does this feel like a sort of visit to Mecca for you?
That is an interesting analogy. I would say that it is exciting to see those booths. I love it. The Teletum, for example, is the game that I'm the most excited about, and we have it packed away in our luggage, and as soon as we get home, that's one of the first ones I want to pull out. I think the first thing I might pull out would be something from, say, like a company like Blue Orange, or some of these more family-oriented companies, because that's, while I am a die-hard heavy Euro gamer, I do love that. I think that one of the strengths that Spiel offers as well is right next to that is going to be something very goofy and silly that a family can play together, and I love to see that combination. That actually is perhaps more reflective of my game taste. While I love big Euro games, I also love playing with my 7-year-old daughter, watching her laugh and giggle at something, and that's what it's all about. Gaming's all about fun.
And so, for anyone listening to this who's on the fence about coming to Spiel, what would you say to them?
I would say that you have to be willing to put up with a lot. It's a lot of effort to figure out how to arrive here. If perhaps, say, German is not your native language, and perhaps if you don't speak it in the least bit, there are some innate challenges to it.
Right.
The amount of the crowds and the amount of spectacle is overwhelming in a lot of ways. But I think that you also have to come with a shopping mentality. This is, for the most part, a shopping convention. And if you don't have that, for example, I am a very terrible shopper.
Yeah.
I take weeks mulling over the most trivial of decisions. Should I spend $30 on this item or wait until it's on sale for $38?
And then get crushing buyer's remorse the second you hand the money over.
Right. If that's you, I think that you're perfectly fine not coming to the Spiel. But if you enjoy the shopping, if you enjoy the spectacle, and if you're willing to put in a little bit of that effort to find, to push past maybe some of those insecurities of coming, I've had a wonderful time, but I'm also surrounded by lots of great people.
Yeah.
And so if you, I don't know, I don't genuinely think it's for everyone, but I think that the people that this convention is for, it's quite something remarkable.
Brilliant. Well, Chris Yee, thank you very much for your time.
Yes. I was semi-cohesive on Sunday at the Spiel Fair, so thank you, Ben.
Incredibly impressed. So it's Essen, it's day 4, and I'm almost dead, but I'm here, thankfully, with an incredibly well-renowned English game designer, Richard Breeze. Richard, so my first question is, how has Essen been for you this year?
I very much enjoyed it. Essen is always one of the highlights of the year. I try and get to a situation where I can publish a new game each year, and the one that I'm demonstrating this year, which is Kingdom's Dragons, is quite an easy game to play. It's quite fun. There's a lot of player interaction. There's been a lot of amusement in the play testing. So whilst you say it's day 4, for some of us it's day 5 because we have a day setting up as well. But the game has been quite fun to demonstrate, and there's been quite fun interaction between some of the people. There was a beautiful case yesterday where there was a chap playing with his son, and we were playing a 3-player game. The son pointed out to his father that he couldn't play his spell at that point because he was relying later on in the round to use his key to get into the castle. So that was really nice of the son, so the father took it back. We got around to the location where with the cottage where you get to choose 2 artifacts, and the father played into there, which then prevented the son from getting into the castle.
As is necessary.
Really? Your son said you take it back and less than that. But and also some of the groups are quite fun because there's a lot of there was a couple of ladies I was playing with, and one of them sort of I said, oh, whoops, can I just take that back for a moment? I said, yeah, that's fine, as long as your friend says it's okay. So I had a look at a friend and said, no.
People can be brutal.
No, but no, it's a great experience, and if you've never been to Essen, you ought to try and go at some time in your life.
And so we were talking just before the mics were on, and we were talking about Reef Encounter and key games and why Reef Encounter isn't a key game. What is the overarching character of the key games?
Okay, so the key games, they all involve a sort of a medieval or similar environment, and you are playing, in some guise or other, you're playing workers, a team of workers that are trying to do things for you. All of the interaction between the players is through the game mechanism, so there's no take that. You can't directly attack another player. You just have to try and do things better or cleverer than the other players. So the interaction in the game is also the interaction. The basis is all positive. So you're trying to do things. There's not a destructive element. So the conversation we were having, we just touched on Reef Encounter, and I said Reef Encounter wouldn't have been a key game because it's one of the few games I've been created where there is an attack on an opponent, and this is an attack where some of your corals devour corals of other players, and you're doing it for a positive reason because that gives you fuel to build up your own position. But it is a sort of a direct action which you won't find in any of the key games.
But I think Keyflower can be very brutal at times, no? Especially if you get the green meeple and block everyone from a number of tiles, right?
That's true, but you're stopping someone doing something rather than taking anything from them, which is sort of it's a step along the line, but
Right.
it's not actually. I can't do anything in Keyflower which will take something from you. What you've got is yours, although if it's your own village, it's yours and you have to share it. But if you share it, you will benefit when other players use it. So again, there's sort of like a bit of a positive feedback loop in there.
And so, why come to Essen? Is it important for marketing your stuff? Is it important for selling your stuff? Why are you here every year?
That's a very good question. I have to think about that. It's my 31 years now I've been coming to Essen, and it's always just been a fabulous experience. The very first year I came, I came with someone else who had allegedly arranged the trip, organised the trip, and at the end of the show on the first day he said, well, let's try and find somewhere to stay. Which, coming to Essen, is not something you can realistically do on the end of the first day. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me because within the gaming context, we were talking to someone and he said, well, I'll see if you can come back and stay at the house that we're staying at. And they phoned up the people there and they said, yeah, that's fine. And we went back and I stayed there. It was my first trip to Germany, and the house, there were about 30 German gamers staying there, playing games through the evening, through the night, and I got to be part of that. And through that, I met some great people, and even last night, Saturday night, we went back there, as I do each Saturday night, to the place that I originally stayed at. We have dinner together, and one of the chap that introduced me came along as well. So it was a lovely evening, lovely food, and a great catch up. So there's lots of aspects. There's the social aspect. There's the design when you're creating a game. A lot of it for me is some of it is solo because obviously you're having the ideas. But a lot of it is also social because when you play test games, you're playing with other people. But I'm a little bit unusual. I'm a little bit of a one-man band, so I'm doing my own graphics, although I have a lady that does the illustrations for me. So that enables me to be quite involved in the production, probably more than I would be perhaps otherwise. And that's something that I enjoy, but it's very different to being at Essen, where you're actually meeting the people that you've been designing for.
Right.
And it's a place, because I'm more well known here than perhaps other convention, because I've been here for so long. It's really nice to get the feedback of when people are coming and they just buy the game, you have a chat, and we're looking forward to seeing you next year, and then also just the demonstrations at the table I enjoy. So overall, it's just a very nice way to spend a week in October every year.
So the doyen of British game design, Tony Boydell, will be listening to this podcast.
Hello, Tony.
Do you have a message for him?
Well, I did speak to Tony a couple of days ago, and I probably had a bit of a catch up then. So Tony has got this great little games museum in Nuent. And if you haven't been there, it's just a lovely little experience. It's in a little arcade of craft shops and a cafe there, and it's just a little step back in time. And Tony was kind enough to invite me there a couple of weeks ago, where we had a very thorough playtesting session for a couple of ideas that I have for a game in next year and the following year. And then similarly, I got to play the new game that Tony and one of his colleagues, Ben Bateson, were producing.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a really good way to spend the day. And so I'll just say thank you, Tony, for being involved in that, and for dinner afterwards.
Brilliant.
Indeed. So, and Tony's come up with some fantastic games as well. So I think, keep up the good work, Tony.
Excellent. Well, Richard Breeze, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. have a good show.
So for the listeners here, it's Essen, it's day 4, and we're here, we finally got it, what we wanted, Steve's performance review with Spielworks for his incredible work he's been doing as creative director of Spielworks over the weekend.
I think the listeners just haven't believed me that I'm the creative director of Spielworks. I think it's a joke. And now we're actually here with my boss, Uli Blendeman.
Say hello.
Hello, Steve. Hello, Ben.
So,
It's good to see you, boss.
I want to know, Uli, I mean, what do you think of Steve's performance as creative director over this Spiel weekend?
I've tried really hard to do as much as I can for Spielworks, for the company, for you personally.
I mean, how long would you say you've been on the booth in total this weekend?
I mean, who can really measure? It's just, I look at you as a father figure, Uli, and you loom so large in German board gaming. I have so much respect for you. It's just being part of this company, part of this family. It's really meant so much for me.
In my opinion, Steve's performance was surprising.
Were you surprised that he literally did no work in 4 days?
Actually, knowing Steve a little bit, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that he did nothing. But in addition, I think what was really surprising, you can do no work while being present.
Right.
But doing no work and not even trying to be present, this is something that is astonishing.
So
It's a good review so far.
So I know Spielworks works on the Spiel rating system. So S, which stands for stability to do your job. What would you rate him on? Stability to do your job. S.
Is that a word?
Yes, stability is a word.
Stability is a word. I would say in Germany, one is the best. 6 is the worst.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Come on, one.
I'm not a hard boss, so I would give him a 5.
5? That's not
Wow,
bad.
that's
not bad.
wow. Considering you've done fuck all for 4 days, 5 is okay.
Wow,
I say,
this is going well.
So P, which is penisness. What would you rate him for P?
This is extremely rude. Is this really the rating scale?
Yeah, it's Uli instigated it, not me.
I'd say I'd go back to my first answer, surprising. So the listeners can just. I don't want to rate it numerically, this P rating, but I'd say surprising.
Surprisingly high would
Sounds
be my
pretty good.
guess.
Sounds pretty good.
So
far,
we've got
yeah.
I, which is inventiveness. What would you rate him on
One.
inventiveness?
I don't even have to to hear the full question. It's a 1.
So
Inventiveness, it's a 1.
Is it because he
creative director for a 1 is good?
Yeah, is it because he invented a position for Spielworks completely
Exactly.
on his own back?
Yeah, so he made this position. He's fulfilling the position himself to the best of his capabilities,
Yeah.
which are, let's face it, low, very
Wait,
low.
what?
But I'm giving him a 1.
But E for energy?
So E for energy.
Energy,
What are you
come
giving
on.
him for
I've
energy?
got a lot of energy.
He's excellent. He's excellent at the glass.
Right?
If there
true.
is alcohol nearby, he's
Yeah.
excellent. Otherwise, his performance.
What
in
about
this
game explanation?
6.
Okay, so
I didn't do any, so that's fair.
and finally L, which is length of time he has left in his job. What would you give him for that?
What?
So here, just considering his wonderful Spielworks performance,
Yeah.
it's another 6. So, of course, you can put it to the head and say, well, if you do nothing and still have this position for 4 days, this
Yeah.
is already something.
It's an achievement.
Normally, you'd be fired after an hour.
Right,
And
exactly.
here, it took almost 4 days.
Is that because you couldn't find him around Spiel to fire him?
That is
Wait, what?
100% the reason.
mean
So
took
you
4
can
days?
only fire somebody when you see him again.
Wait a minute. I've got a lot of irons in the fire. I'm organizing an entire hall at the Berlin Brett Spielcon
Oh,
next
did you?
year for
By the way,
Spielworks.
you might not have known
Yeah.
yet. Steve has agreed that you'll pay to hire Hall 2 at Berlin.
The whole thing,
Spielcon.
yeah.
Yeah, the good thing is that Spielworks, knowing now this, will never attend BerlinCon again.
Also, he's
signed-
arranged a licensing deal with
Yes.
a game that's perfect for Spielworks.
Yeah.
Core Request.
The German edition
agreed
Cora
to
Quest.
publish Cora Quest next year.
I mean, Root is a kid's game, and I
Right,
thought
exactly.
Cora Quest is very similar to Root.
Yes.
And still with this, you're firing him.
Yes.
Wait, what?
So if there's 2 words you'd like to say to Steve
What?
to end this review, what would they be?
You're fired.
You know, it's a bit bittersweet for me that my time at Spielworks has ended.
Yeah.
But Uli's right. You know, I just didn't do enough. And I've learned a lot. Like, I've a lot of valuable experience working at Spielworks.
Of course.
I mean, working for Uli for one day, that's like 10 years in any other company.
Exactly. I mean,
You know?
in terms of torturousness.
Yeah. So I may no longer be the creative director of Spielworks, but I think I've got something even better.
What's that?
I can now put on my CV that I am the former creative director of Spielworks.
Exactly.
You know, the story is not over for me in this industry. I think I show up to any company, you know, any company, Ares, Matago, Queen Games,
John's Games.
John,
Belka.
yeah, for example, you know, any of these major publishers, and they see that I have experience at Spielworks.
Yeah.
Instant job. They won't even interview me, like sight unseen.
I wonder though. I have a little concern.
What's that?
You know, they're going to ask you. Uli is at the centre of games.
Yes.
So they're going to
What?
ask Uli.
What, for a reference?
For a reference.
This is the beautiful thing about Germany. It is actually against the law for him to write me a negative reference.
Wow.
Now, it turns out that because of this, there's a kind of coded language that they use here to write reference letters in which you can sort of say that someone is great but imply that they're not so great. I don't think Uli is that kind of person. I think he's going to be like honest, fair, and he's going to want to help me out. Right?
You think?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm trying to do is earn my way back eventually, right? I need to go out and just get more experience.
So what
you know?
this is a long-term gambit to get back into Spielworks eventually.
Well, Spielworks is like the top of the industry. That's the problem.
Does your heart lie in Spielworks?
Absolutely. I mean, everything
how
else is
happy?
every other possible position I could have would be a compromise.
When
wouldn't
you were offered the job,
they could make me CEO of Asmodee.
Actually, that's a point.
It would not be as esteemed as creative director of Spielworks.
That's the point. I don't remember you actually getting the job of creative director at Spielworks. I just remember one day you just saying, I'm creative director at Spielworks. I don't remember, because like me and Uli are pretty close, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like if he was going to appoint you...
He separates friendship from business, I think.
I feel like he'd send me just a note saying, you know, what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea?
In the US, we say, don't dress for the job that you have, dress for the job that you want.
All right. So
And I put on a Spielworks t-shirt, and I showed up this happened at Berlin Brett Spielcon. Someone came up to me because I was wearing the t-shirt and asked me a question, and I answered it. And from that moment, I realized I didn't even like appoint myself creative director. I realized I was the creative director.
The universe wished you to be creative director at Spielworks.
Yeah, it happened. And you know, Uli and I have had our ups and downs over the interview period. I'd like to say I walked away with like something really valuable. I really learned a lot from Uli. He gave me so much. And I just want to say, Uli, if you're listening to this, thank you. But, you know, you and I, we're not done yet.
So, okay, let's actually talk about Essen.
Yep.
Rather than your employment. It seems to have dominated a lot of this content.
I mean, it certainly dominated my experience at Essen.
So how was Essen 2022 for you?
So Essen 2022 felt a lot like 2019. And not very much like 2021.
That's right.
Except for the masks. Right, wearing masks for 4 days, my ears are killing me.
Agony. I'm literally in agony from wearing those bloody masks.
Yeah, and you know, there's something about this intervening period, this sort of like interregnum or intergamedom
exactly.
that we had, that makes me feel like the earlier Essens that I attended were like the halcyon days, right? Where there were like bars all over the con, like nobody was wearing masks. It didn't like necessarily feel different. Like Splotter was there, for example. Right. I don't know. It's not exactly the same as the before time, but
so
much closer than last year.
What's fascinating about 2022, and I said to Dominique when I was speaking to her that it felt like Essen was back, and I think that is strictly true, but not 100%. Mm-hmm. I don't think. It didn't feel quite, as you say, it felt 80% there, which is excellent. Don't get me wrong, but the masks are a big factor, and
there's a transition, I think, especially, a big publisher that I was used to seeing all the time, Hobby World, isn't there because of Russian sanctions.
Renegade wasn't there because they're worried about COVID restrictions.
Exactly. It felt like supply chain issues were a bit of a thing.
A bunch of games I wanted just didn't show up.
Didn't arrive, right?
They didn't manage to get Pilgrim to Spielworks on time.
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, I'm going to get over it.
Anyway, once part of the Spielworks family, always a part of the Spielworks family.
Ben just put his hand on my knee. That was a genuine moment of human
consolation.
Affection. Yeah. Do you think this is a fiction? It's not.
So yeah, it's... The thing is, right, what's clear to me is it's not just the fair that contributes to your experience of the fair. So I had a great time, don't get me wrong. It was great. But fuck me, trains. Fuck me. So we stayed at a place which was nice enough, and it wasn't actually that far in real terms. But the fucking trains this weekend were absolute fucking misery.
Yeah, because they decided to do construction during the school holidays, which happened to coincide with
the Messe. And so...
Because in the past, we didn't have to worry about any of this stuff. We had a local guy organizing the whole thing. We had a place not far from the center to stay. It was like 20 people.
Yeah.
It was like party all day, all night, games, good times.
And
cheap.
And so the issue, I think, with Essen, where it's changed, is because it has become, to a degree, a victim of its own success. So... When I first went, 2012, I just spontaneously booked a room a week before Essen, right? Mm-hmm. And I found a 25 quid a night room. I mean, I was sharing it with randos, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but 25 a night.
And I went down and it was great. And then this lad in our gaming group organised it for the subsequent sort of 6 years, I guess. But what's happened is, finding accommodation in Essen, actually, because you've been looking, it's not that it's gone crazy up in price, although some of the hotels are nuts, right? Mm-hmm. It's not that necessarily. It's just, everyone was saying to me, when I was talking about the apartment stuff, they were saying, you need to book now. You need to book your fucking accommodation now. And that...
Now as in...
Now.
Now for next year.
Exactly. And it's
it's the availability, it's not the price.
Yeah, and so my worry is the spontaneous dickheads who go and get hooked are not a constituency anymore.
I see. It's gotten to be corporate, and if you have to plan it, it takes away some of the flavor.
No, it's not just that. It's just that, you get into games. See if you get into games in February next year, and you live in Berlin, and you get hit fucking hard, and you go, right, I've definitely got to go to Essen. You're gonna have a real tough time.
Yeah, I mean, for us, every year we have to figure it out anew, how to make it work, the logistics, and this time it looked great on paper. Just didn't really work out so well. But I want to make a counter argument.
Right.
We're maybe a little bit different because there's this, we often talk about the board game community, right? And I'm always saying there's no board game community because it's too big, it's too many people, it's not like it's cohesive. But there is a community that you're a part of, and now I'm kind of becoming tangentially a part of. I mean, that is certainly a community. And if you want to be part of that, and you want to stay in town and hang out with people and do Essen after hours, you kind of have to be close by. But if you're just, what do you call them, a punter?
Right.
It's just someone who shows up. You could stay in a nearby city. You could stay in Dortmund, Duisburg, whatever. Come in for the day, and it's fine. It'll work. You don't have to be in Essen itself.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Okay, so to talk about that aspect, what's really fascinating is that doing this podcast, the very structure of my podcast, means that I talk to people. And I get to know people. And that is really gratifying that I had, it sounds like a terrible humble brag, but it's not, it's just a state of affairs, offers every night to do shit. And you always say there's no community, and I disagree, and especially something like Essen reinforces that there's just there is a real sense of community.
There's the community that you're a part of. I just mean there's no like general board game community that everybody's a part of.
Again, I'm not sure I agree, because I think you can sit down with people at a game and have a mutual interest and a sort of, I think the community, what are those things that fungi have? Phylum or whatever. What are they called?
Oh, the hypha.
That form like a network across the
hypha.
forest floor, so they're able to communicate with each other. That's what board games feel like to me, right? It feels like there is a certain knowledge that you can kind of sit down with anyone and have a moment.
This is like community in the abstract sense.
Yeah, in the sense that we...
Like internet community. I think we use the word more loosely. If I go onto a Board Game Geek, I'm like now part of the board game community because all these people and I have a shared interest.
Yes, but the thing is about a community as well. I think a board game community lies out there, sort of across the world in many ways.
Yeah.
But you have to consent to be a part of that community, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that there's maybe a small percentage of people who are like that involved. That, like, for example, there's a controversy in the community. How many people actually care about it and participate in that dialogue?
No, but what's interesting about the board game community is that I think we are able to. I think you are able to tap into that community very quickly.
You know what I think it might be? I think there was like kind of, for many years, I'm going to speculate here, like a kind of nucleus, because the board game community, such as it was very small.
Yeah.
And therefore, like tight-knit, everyone probably knew everybody else. You were telling me Dominique started Spiel in like a schoolroom with 5 tables, and it gradually grew, but probably it was able to maintain some kind of like cohesion and integrity for a long time. And then at a certain point, it exploded, like the sun expanding to a red giant. But it maintained this sort of core of people, of companies. You could get into it, but the kind of outer layers are now much larger.
Well, what's fascinating about board games is even though Essen is this big thing and it feels like they feel like companies, it still retains that ad hoc, you're in your garage, early days of Apple feeling, even though it's big, which is wonderful.
I wonder for how much longer.
This is interesting, right? Because people talk about Asmodee presaging the end of sort of board games as we know it.
Yeah.
But the point is, not everyone can be owned by Asmodee. And so, I mean, what's changed?
Would you be willing to be owned by Asmodee?
Oh, fucking buy this podcast
Asmodee,
tomorrow.
if someone's listening.
So, I think what happened. What has transformed board gaming? What has changed board gaming immeasurably? And I think it's a good thing by and large is Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. Because actually what's fascinating is there was a time when people were saying, oh, well, your game has to have fucking tons of minis to even be considered as a Kickstarter viable project. But that's no longer the case. I mean, Fantasia Games, right? I was speaking to them, really nice guys, and I worked for them a couple of weeks ago. And that's why we were chatting. But their new game is about developing psychoanalytical theories, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that is a sea change for me. That a theme like that can fly within a realm that was before sci-fi, fantasy, and farming, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's really fascinating.
I want to make another observation about the board game world, whatever, that I think is a significant change. I propose this as an argument, and this could be my article if I were to write an article: the rise of the casual gamer. Because I think when I was growing up in the 90s and probably on into the 2000s playing games, there weren't too many casual gamers. It wasn't a thing to be a casual gamer. I mean, there are lots of like casual games, but like hobby board gaming, I think you were pretty much hardcore into it, or you didn't know it existed at all.
Absolutely.
Catan came along, and I think a lot of people started to casually play Catan. I'm not sure about Carcassonne. I think that's much more of a gateway game than Settlers, because I think Settlers, you might just never play anything else. I knew people in university who loved Settlers, but they only played Settlers.
Yeah.
They got to Settlers, and they stopped. I knew some people who played Dominion casually, but by and large, I don't think there was such a huge contingent of casual gamers, and I think maybe the industry is trying to like break out of this hobby mold? Because like you'll never sell enough copies to only hobby.
You know where I
gamers.
see the shift though, is I think because games are mechanical things, right? There are people who are really into games, as into games as we are, right? But they say anything more difficult than Pandemic is just not my fucking bag, right? Phil Walker Harding is someone who springs to mind. He is someone who just says, I like simple, clean games with simple mechanics, and they needn't be, simple games needn't be ephemera. They needn't be gossamer shit floating away on the wind. These are legitimate games as well. And what you've seen is that the casual gamer has not really altered the complexity of their games in many ways, but have started designing those games. And what you have, which is great, is kind of on every level of the gaming complexity scale, you have brilliant, decent, deep games. That's the thing. When there's just Catan, Carcassonne, Ticket to Ride, right? Great. But now you can have a game collection of 1,000, and they're all brilliant games, and they're no more complex than Ticket to Ride. And that's bringing in lots of people, I think.
So why do you think people still come to Essen? Because you don't really need to anymore. You don't have to go to Essen. I mean, there is that sort of like hype aspect where you want the latest game immediately because you can't wait. But nowadays, practically every game of note is on Kickstarter, or you're going to be able to get it shortly after Essen is over in the shops. There are some games that maybe come from overseas, like I think some games from Asia are very hard to get, and you probably do have to go to Essen to get them. But even those are going to have, like, if they're good, if they're popular, they'll find a publisher. They will eventually make it into the shops. So it's not strictly speaking necessary to go. So why do people go? Is it for the ambiance, to sort of like feel like you're part of like the buzz? Is it just because Essen is fucking great? Why do people go?
Because there is a board game community that people wish to be part of, and Essen is the absolute dead center of that. And the reason I wanted to go, because the thing is, so you have two crowds, right? You have the Saturday crowd. Why is Saturday so much busier?
Families?
It's because the families come,
Yep.
right? And so you have that, and then you have the sort of hardcore crowd. And when I got into games, I got into all aspects of it. Not just the playing the games, but the reading about the games and the watching the videos and the hearing about opinions. And Essen loomed large in all of that. And what Essen promises is a feeling, again, it is a desire to be part of something. We've seen, it is just inherent, especially post-COVID, but even before that, it is inherent within us. People didn't stand in a 7-kilometer long queue to fucking look at a corpse because they were really upset the Queen died. They were there because they wanted to be part of something. The thing is, as we've become ever more atomized in society, as sort of corporate plutocracies who understand that they should make us sad and exploit that sadness, have sort of wormed their way into our everyday interactions. So, we meet our work colleagues and no one else anymore. There is an inbuilt need that is not being serviced. Something like Essen is like filling the fuel tank. It's fucking exhausting, but there is something inexplicably invigorating about being around that many people for that length of time. Right?
It would be interesting to go around and ask, quote unquote, regular people about
Why
it.
are you here?
Yeah, like walking the halls segment where you're not just talking to game designers, but you just like stop random people and ask them, what is it about Essen? Why are you here? Where do you come from? Why do you love games? Something like that. Might be interesting.
I'll do it next year.
So, were there any standout? We're not talking about games at all. Were there any standout games? Like for me, there's always a standout game or two. There's always like a hall that I say is like my hall. This hall fits my personality, my taste. Like usually I say it's hall 4. This year, things felt a lot more mixed. I didn't feel like there was a standout title for the most part. I mean, you got War of the Ring, the card game, and that's definitely like top of the agenda. I got Woodcraft. I mean, I was very eager to have it. I don't know if I was like super excited to have it. I think it'll be great. I don't think the halls had as much distinct personality as in the past. I mean, toward the back of Hall 5, you get a lot of like very independent publishers, so that's That's still a thing. Hall 6 still skews toward like RPG minis and that kind of thing. I don't know where I'm going with this. Like, were there standout games? Were there like particular parts of the Messe where you felt this part speaks to me the most?
I think Woodcraft was the one, it seemed to me. So a lot of the games sold out, but I think the one that felt really buzzy was Woodcraft.
Because on Wednesday, every other publisher had it under their arm.
Yeah, I mean, they decided to sell, which was a very clever thing, but there was a queue to buy Woodcraft Wednesday night before the Messe had opened, right?
It seems like the game designer's game.
Cat in the Box was super buzzy, but was super buzzy for 5 minutes because it sold out after 5 minutes, right? So it's going to be super buzzy until it can no longer be.
And I got to be like, I got one.
And the thing is, Essen, for me, it's very difficult for me to talk about games because Essen is not about games for me. Essen is about the social aspect, it is about generating things for people to listen to. I'm not going to use the C word because it makes me fucking sick.
Never mind.
And so it's what will happen is in the shake up in the subsequent couple of months, we'll find out what the hot game of Essen was. And so
I wonder how many people feel that way. Essen is not about games for me.
yeah, and it's just the thing is what's interesting. Speaking to Dominique, she was saying that what she wanted to do next year, the big change that they wanted to instigate, was more eventy stuff. Mm-hmm. So more panels, more live shows.
That's cool. They need to do the panels in English, though.
Well, firstly, you need to do the panels in English. Regardless, I know it's in Germany, but Essen...
It's an international thing.
Essen is not Germany for 4 days,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It just isn't. Secondly, I hope, my concern is that because... I'm going to do a little rant now. Because America is so charismatic, because Americans are so good at putting themselves forward, and because they're so demanding of people's attention, often America's cultural zeitgeist ends up becoming everyone else's zeitgeist, right? And there is a particular brand of American zeitgeist that masquerades itself as seeking to include, and is actually very divisive. Mm-hmm. And I saw evidence of that this year when they had So I popped my head around where they were doing panels.
Are we about to get controversial?
Well, I don't think it's particularly controversial. There was a panel, and I assumed it would be a panel about women in gaming and the particular unique problems women face, right? Which is a great panel to have. It's an interesting panel to have, and it's a legitimate panel to have. But actually, and all the panel members were women under 40, right? And what's fascinating is that panel was about diversity in games, and yet the panel was the least diverse thing you could have. And I worry that because America is so charismatic and because Americans are so forthright, that they will start having events and it will start to reflect a particular brand of American politics that is fundamentally divisive. And I think it could be, the reason Essen is successful, right? The reason Essen is successful is because it steps away from that. It says, fine, you can talk about that within the industry, but Essen isn't about that. Essen is about the games. The minute it starts becoming a political platform, Essen is going to become a battleground. Mm-hmm. And I don't want that to happen. And that comes, and the thing is, it's not a particular thing of one particular side of politics. But the problems you've seen in America is that there is a particular brand of American politics that markets itself as inclusive and is incredibly divisive. And I don't think you should contaminate Essen with that.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I kind of think if this does happen, for a long time, it will remain a sideshow, and
this is the hope, right?
You can very easily ignore it if that happens. But we'll see. I think what's extraordinary about Essen is the fact that America hasn't overtaken it.
Right?
Why isn't there a I mean, there's Gen Con. I know there's Gen Con, but it's not comparable to Essen. Why hasn't America basically taken the crown from Germany?
Well, because
as the home of board games with the largest convention, with the most publishers, the greatest attendance. Like, Germany is like an underdog in this battle, but it has retained its rightful place as the homeland, the Heimat of board gaming.
That's fascinating.
And I think it's great.
That's fascinating because I disagree with your interpretation there. I don't think Germany is an underdog in this particular facet.
No, I just mean like sort of versus America, not in this facet.
The thing is, America has so many niches and groups that it is difficult. It is difficult to have a sort of a focus in the way that Essen does. Board games in Germany are board games, bear in mind, is what I'm saying, are just much more serious in Germany than they are in the States.
Culturally.
The companies are just much more together, much more serious. The companies that don't feel like coming out the back of a garage are by and large the German.
Yeah, but surely they sell
Pegasus Spieler, Amigo,
Yeah.
Schmidt Spieler. These feel like real companies, not enthusiastic amateurs trying to struggle.
But they must all go to Gen Con, right?
I don't know if the German publishers go to Gen Con.
No, I don't know either. And I don't have numbers in front of me. I would just assume this, given the size of the consumer market in the U.S., there must be like way more total board games sold in the U.S. than in Germany. But,
that's just,
I don't know about Europe, though.
That's just a matter of numbers, though, right? I mean, the point is, if you're talking about cultural integration, I'm pretty sure you can't go into a drugstore in America and buy a Reiner Knizia game, where you can in Germany, right?
Not yet.
So it's a fundamentally different thing.
But you can buy candy and Coca-Cola and maybe not marijuana.
Guns?
Probably in some states.
So, okay. Just to wrap up then, what was your... Have we asked this question?
Highlight of day 4?
What was your highlight of the whole con in totality?
I mean, I don't think anything is going to top Thursday night and just sort of like hanging out with Martin Wallace, just because I'd never met him before and I didn't know what to expect, and he was such a mensch. But I do want to say that we went out on a high note, because at the end of the con yesterday, day 4, we happened upon the R&D booth, and Richard Breeze was in, and it was like lucky stroke. You got to interview him, and after the interview was over, I noticed like they had the kind of poster with all the various key games. I'm just sort of curious about the origin of the key games, and he mentioned there was just some guy in a gaming group that his name was Keywood. I forget his last name, Keywood something, and like this name stuck in Richard's mind, and he decided to make a game called Keywood. Now I have to look for that game. Richard says on the secondary market it's going to be like $1,000, so maybe I'm never going to find it. But from this one guy's name, Keywood, came all of these key games: Cathedral, Keyflower, Keeper, blah blah blah. And I thought, this is probably the greatest missed opportunity of your life. Can you imagine if he had met you instead of Keywood? Do you know what games we would have, Ben?
Right.
We would have Benwood.
Yeah.
We would have Ben Flow. I don't know what that's about. We'd have Ben Harvest.
Yeah.
We'd have Bendum.
Yeah.
We'd have Ben Flower.
Yeah.
What's Ben Flower about?
It's about me growing flowers, obviously.
Benper. I don't know if that really works.
Benper. Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah, it works.
Benthedral. I mean, you kind of lose the pun there a little bit. And the greatest missed opportunity of all time, the game that would have been the game for you had this all worked out. It's right there. Look at it. What would it have been?
Bentown.
Bentown.
Can you imagine? Anyway, so my highlight was obviously... So I'm a fucking useless cunt, right?
Yes.
For anyone listening to this, I'm a useless cunt.
Yes.
I couldn't organise. That's good talking, isn't it? I'm quite tired. I'm not drunk. It's 10 o'clock in the morning.
No, it's just early. I
couldn't organise myself out of a wet paper bag if I had a pair of scissors with me.
Now, this is an event we should organize for Essen next year.
So,
stick you in a paper bag, give you a pair of scissors.
Like, wait a
minute. Never mind.
So, but I organised the meal on Thursday night.
Yes.
Well, I fucking reserved the restaurant table. That was it, really. And it was an absolute rip-roaring success. Everyone had a good time. And it was great. And so next year, if you're listening to this, and you're coming to Essen, and you want to come to our Thursday night meal, let's fucking do it. and we'll get 100 people.
I was going to say, we're going to have 14 instead of 13.
Exactly. And we'll have a fucking 5G for D fucking drinks night.
I love you, Uli.